Good evening, everyone. We have an appointment with you. We're very happy to be here to have a little chat with Mr. Matt. Mr. Matt Johnson. He is a pastor, he is a mental health professional, and he's here with us on Impact Ambiance. My name is Jeanne, and I am part of Impact Ambiance, and we really encourage you to invite Christ in every area of your life. And today we're going to be speaking about mental health, the different aspects of mental health that we're going to look at. And I wanted to present to you Mr. Matt Johnson. Matt, I would love for you to speak to our audience tonight. We're very happy that everyone is here. If you get a chance, please share the live. You can invite somebody else to listen as well. Mr. Matt Johnson, please go ahead.
All right. Just trying to share the video so we can get some more views. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Pastor Matt Johnson. I'm the founder of Journaling Saves Lives, which is a mental health advocacy organization. And we function in two major ways. One of the first thing we do is we facilitate mental health educational seminars with the goal of eliminating stigmas and stereotypes, which, as we know, are barriers to people receiving treatment. And the second thing we do is we serve as a liaison to actually connect people, individuals and family, with the peer and professional resources that they need: therapy, counselor, peer and family support groups, and the wellness tools and resources. That's what we do, because our ultimate goal is to see people live healed, healthy, and whole lives. I am born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been in South Florida since 2017. I love it here because I don't have winter time. And listen, I'm a graduate of Malone University. Believe it or not, I have a dual background. It's business and marketing, and then also behavioral, social, and developmental psychology. And I'm also certified in mental health first aid. And I'm grateful to have the knowledge and expertise in a lot of the areas of mental health, because I can utilize it to my benefit to pastor God's people, without feeling overwhelmed and burdened myself. So that's who I am. I'm newly married as of September 7th of last year. Got married on my 37th birthday. So a couple months and then we'll be celebrating a year. No children yet, but they'll be coming in due time, but we want to enjoy the marriage. So that's me. Thank you all for tuning in, and we're looking to have a great time tonight. And
Awesome.
thank you, Jan, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yes, on behalf of the team, thank you for answering the call, because we recognize how important it is to have such a conversation. As Christians, especially in this time, no one is immune to what's going on. Not only we're going through a pandemic, but we're also going through physical separation. We have confinement. We have social issues that are very, very intense. So we have to adjust to a lot of different things. So mental health today and Christians, it's something that's really, really sensitive, because some people feel that we can look at the religious or Christian aspect, and they tend to put aside the physical, biological, psychological aspect. So today we wanted to speak about what exactly, when people talk about mental health, what exactly do they understand? And a lot of times people are thinking that can't happen to me, or it's not that bad. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to us about how we could identify certain negative stereotypes about mental health that could really hinder our openness to receive information and maybe even care.
One of the things I want to say is we have to make the distinction between mental health and mental illness. Just like health and illness is not the same thing. You'll hear people say, man, they got mental health. Like, that's not a bad thing. You want mental health. You want to be mentally healthy.
Sure.
And really, mental health has a wide spectrum of, where that falls for an individual. Because just like, for instance, with your physical health, you run 10 miles a day, you eat fruits, vegetables, and fish. Your overall, your blood pressure is great, your blood work is great, but you get the flu, okay? you're still overall healthy, but you just have, a compromised situation. And the same thing with when it comes to mental health disorders, because I know in the mental health world, they'll say when you're starting to have symptoms, but has not really been diagnosed, they'll call it a mental health disorder. But when you have been diagnosed, they'll call it mental illness. So I just wanted to let people know that it's not the same thing. Like, again, if you are dealing with something, don't automatically assume you have a mental illness, because there are things that upset us. There are things that make us feel a little depressed, and we have to distinguish the factor between normal, everyday sadness that can come because of life situations versus sometimes people say, man, you depressed, but clinical depression has factors that go into identifying it as such. So I just want to make the distinguishing factor and let people know, listen, health and illness are not the same thing. You want to be mentally healthy, okay? But when you are not proactive in taking care of the normal stressors and the normal stresses in life, it becomes distress, because stress technically is a good thing. Distress, when you don't keep a firm grip or a proactive grip on the stressors, that's when you can compromise your mental health, and now you can start embarking upon the grounds of mental health disorders or mental illness. Because if something is going on and you don't get the proper help, or you don't pay attention to it and you suppress or act like something isn't there, then you can begin to unravel and it can grow to a worsened state. And I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you for making those very important distinctions, because in knowing that there's a difference between mental health, mental illness, mental disorder, that helps us to seek a certain balance towards our mental health, and then perhaps avoiding mental disorders, which may lead to mental health. That's great. So there's a lot of misconceptions, as you can see, because personally, I never really thought about disorder, health, and illness as three distinct things around mental health. So what are the misconceptions that people may be facing in terms of mental health?
Well, it sounds like, let me address it like this. We're going to address the stigmas and the stereotypes, because ultimately that's what we want to destroy, because those are the barriers to people receiving treatment because of what others are saying or how society views them. I can't let them know that I'm dealing with clinical depression. I can't let them know I'm dealing with the eating disorder or anxiety. So it's like, because of, they may think I'm not capable of, running my life. I don't have good control of my life, or I can't hold a job, or I can't facilitate relationships. So it's important that we attack the stigmas and stereotypes. But one of the main ones is this: it has been reinforced through media that people develop mental illnesses, mental health disorders, or mental illnesses in its worsened state because of a lack of willpower. We have to put that out online, because some people, you just don't have no willpower. Will your way to healing and wholeness. You can't just will your way, because nobody in their right mind, if they had that much willpower, and if willpower was that responsible for whether one gets mental health disorders or mental illness or not, then they would have willed not to even get to that point,
Right. So in an aspect, you mentioned how people perceive us, but some people also don't want to even perceive themselves having the possibility of having a disorder. So once the person is able to say to themselves, listen, I can't snap out of this, or what's the next step for them?
The next step is to seek out someone that can help you. I used to say, well, let me say, seek out help, and for some, seek out those that can probably help you. The reason why I have to make that distinction is because depending on your level of severity of the condition, how long it has been going on, how long you have suppressed it or denied it, and now you're coming around to wanting help. Some people, we can't just say, go get help, because they don't know where to look for help. But some people know, okay, I can go to my mother. She can probably point me in the right direction. So The next step is to either, if you know how to look up therapists or counselors, peer family support groups, or in its advanced stages, if you need to call the suicide line, get help, then go directly to where the help is. But if you're not aware, or you're ignorant, not ignorant from the meaning perspective, but you're just not aware of what the resources are. Then you go and say, Mom, I'm suffering, or Pastor, I'm suffering, or hey, sis, or your brother, I'm suffering. What can I do? And then that'll be for them somebody, hopefully they're mentally and emotionally healthy themselves, or they can point you in the right direction. But even if they're not, I've had situations like that where people didn't know where to get help. So they went to someone that was dealing with their own set of issues, but because they knew where to get help, even though they were dealing with mental health problems, they say, listen, you know what I'm dealing with, but I've been going to this therapist or this counselor. So now they can still serve as a bridge and link them. So the next step is to actually seek a person that can help you, or go directly to the help yourself.
And so that's for someone who actually says, yes, this could be happening, and
Mhm.
admits that, you know what, it won't hurt to talk to someone or to.
Right.
And what's the danger of denying? Because as you said, we have social stigma, we have our own personal stigma, we have
Mhm.
ignorance, not knowing where to go.
Yeah.
So what kind of danger does that pose if someone is not yielding to the signs? What kind
Mhm.
of impact can that have on a person, perhaps physically, mentally, and even spiritually?
Well, let me start with this. High blood pressure, okay? For instance, if you don't manage that, it can begin to wear on your heart. You can develop arrhythmias, you can develop heart failure, you can develop valve problems, it can start to wear and tear on your kidneys, renal failure. It can begin to wear and tear when you don't nip it in the bud, or get to where help is. So the same thing with a mental health disorder. Like if you notice, and let's go to someone that hasn't technically been diagnosed, they just noticed something is going on. Okay, you want to try to put yourself in a position to receive help, either going to somebody or going directly to where the help is. Because if you don't do it in a timely manner, now life is going to always have issues and problems and situations and traumatic experiences each day that comes. That's just a part of life. There's just normal wear and tear mentally and emotionally in life. But if you had a serious issue, a very traumatic experience, or you notice, or just a culmination of the fact that you just can't handle what's going on in your life, the stressors have become overwhelming. You just need to say, listen, get to where the help is, because if you don't, and you just say, I'll be okay, or I just need to sleep a little bit, or maybe I just need to just go for a walk, or maybe I just need to just chill out. If you tell yourself that and you don't get, the proper help you need, just like blood pressure can start trickling itself down, the same thing, your physical health, because you can cause heart problems, because that's stress overload, known as distress. You can literally cause heart problems, digestive system problems, psychological problems from the perspective of your reaction times are delayed. Things that are simple tasks becomes, what can I say? It becomes so complex. Like, it's easy to wash your spoon, but you've kind of lessened the severity of what you've been feeling. So now it's a year later, and now the depression has grown worse. So now you don't want to get out the bed and to even wash your spoon. It's just grievous. And the reason why I have to say it like that is just so people can understand that when you don't get help, even the simplest things, paying a bill online, can become compromised, and it becomes grievous for people to do. So that's the major dangerous thing of letting it go.
Which brings me to so like you said, you could have symptoms physically, so then your health is breaking down. And
Mhm.
then possibly if you don't feel so good, then maybe your work and your social life get affected slowly. And then next thing you know, your spiritual life too could be affected,
Yeah.
because all those things are intertwined. So I want to look at, what does it look like? I mean, you mentioned a few signs, and some people may have recurring
Yep.
thoughts. Some people have endured a trauma, what we call
Mhm.
trauma, due to a major change, either death, divorce, loss of employment, even this pandemic. So
Mhm.
uh, it could start very small. And so I wanted to just name a few things for people to say, you know what? something's up. Maybe I do need to speak to someone. And for
Mhm.
one, let's say, like I just mentioned, the recurring thoughts or a dark thoughts or feeling like, I don't feel like doing anything fun. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think sometimes people may feel a certain way and their environment, people in their environment might say, well, take a couple of days off or have a cup of tea, relax. But
Mhm.
there's some things that are real clear markers that, you know what, you need to call somebody.
So for us, sometimes talking about warning signs with the person that's dealing with the situation is a little hard because they're probably not cognitively able to identify what's going on. So that's when I mentioned earlier on another platform that we need to open up the community and be community-like again. Everybody is only concerned about their own spouse, their own kids, and everybody else got to get it for themselves. But that's not how society has always been. That has taken its turn for the worse over the last 10, 15 years. But just whether you are a next door neighbor, a co-worker, or like I mentioned to you one time, where you can be going to the same McDonald's for 20 years. You see the same old man sitting in the same corner with the same clothes, and you never go and try to find out what's going on, what's his name, where he's from. And I say that to say this. We have to, if you open your eyes, it doesn't take a professional eye to see a lot of times that something is wrong, or even to step in and try to intervene. So one of the things we want to definitely look for, you don't need a professional eye to see somebody is irritable. Like if you notice this person is generally speaking a mild manner, easygoing person, but you've been knowing them for a long time, or you just seen them from afar off for a long time. Listen, and you notice they're irritable, something is wrong. This is not in their normal character. So now you need to find out, take that extra step. Don't say, you okay? So we got to stop that. Let's go the extra step. What's going on? Share with me. We have to, what do I call it, Jan? Open-ended questions. Tell me what's going on. Because if you say, are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. You
Right.
cool? Yeah, I'm good. Open-ended questions. The next thing I want to say is too, seclusive behavior. You got a very extroverted personality person that you're aware of. Could be your niece, your nephew, co-worker, or somebody from church, and you notice, and they've been like this. You've been knowing them 40 years. They've been like this ever since you know them. But you notice the last 6 months, they haven't wanted to do anything. They just want to sit in their house, kick their feet up, and watch TV.
Right.
Nothing has clicked in our head that, hey, this is not their norm, and it's
Right.
not been their norm for 6 months. I need to find out what's going on. These are things that doesn't take a professional eye to see. It just
Sure.
takes people coming out their own shell and stop being selfish and being concerned about somebody else. Let me mention a couple more.
Right.
Uh, Overly cheerful, because when people are dealing with especially depression
Mhm.
and deep depression, and the reason why I say deep and not clinical, because you can't say it's clinical depression until you go to a mental health therapist and get diagnosed. But when they're dealing with deep depression, sometimes so people won't ask them what's going on, they say, oh, I'm good. Like, oh, let's go. You got to be able to discern and see through that. And it doesn't take professional eye. It takes being connected to your maker that gives us the ability to discern. And you got to be able to see through smiles, see through jokes. Robin Williams, the actor, brought joy to many, laughed and was silly and this, and killed himself.
Yes, very good point. And I think that we have to work on reaching that level by also making sure that ourselves, we can say, I'm not tuning in into myself.
Yeah.
I don't feel this way, or I think I need this, or being able to identify within your own person that there's a
Hmm.
balance, that
Hmm.
there are things that you like that you don't like anymore. Or, for people who usually pray, oh, I don't feel like praying, I don't feel like meditating, or,
Yeah.
nothing seemed to be uplifting. Or I think a lot of times people also don't understand the impact of trauma.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a little bit about giving trauma really the respect it deserves? Because people feel like, well, it happened and it happened, but sometimes weeks or months later, you're still
Hmm.
recovering under the impact and not realizing. So I like what you said about the community reaching out, being able to identify. But I think as
Yeah. Mhm,
we practice being self-aware of
mhm.
our own mental state, that's going to help us to be sharper towards others as well, you know?
That's true. This comes with, and again, we can't give to others, and that's another problem in society. We see it reinforced in social media where I can't do for myself, but I'm going to try to do for you though. It's like, how
Mhm.
can I help you? This is what you can do to manage your stress, but you're not managing your stress. So how do we find it so easy for others? And I think the one thing we want to make sure we understand is this, and we have to speak to the Black community, whether you're African American, whether you're Haitian, whether you're Jamaican, whatever the case may be, our Black community. It is not a badge of honor to say, this pain and sorrow, this trauma made me who I am. No, it didn't.
Mhm.
Pain, trauma, sorrow, things that deeply hit you at the core did not make you who you are. What you do with that in a positive way, like me, I went through many traumatic experiences. And I used to say, this is a badge of honor. God entrusts his strongest battles to his toughest soldiers. That's foolish talk. We have to remember there are some people that go through things less than us and they break. You see what I'm saying? So I think the one thing we want to make sure is that, listen, trauma is real. Don't be okay with the fact that you experienced it. And what I say, when I say that, I mean this. Some people say, okay, how can I say this? Be okay with that you experienced it. Don't act like it didn't happen because it did, but don't be okay with it from the perspective of, well, there ain't nothing I can do, because there is something you can do. You can be healed. You can be whole.
Mhm.
So people, we got to stop the religious lingo that people say. Instead of saying, I'm depressed, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm hurt, this hit me at the core. They say, I'm blessed and highly favored and all this stuff. Listen, no, just say, this hit me hard. I don't know how to make sense of my emotions. I don't know even where to look for help, but I know I need help, because if I stay like this, I'm not going to become or continue to be who God has put me on this earth to be. So, like you said, you have to give it its proper respect, because it is a monster. If you don't handle, there are some people that how they, you can tell how they raise their kids. They call it tough discipline and tough love, but it's like, no, you got wounds in you that have not been healed, and you're disguising it as tough discipline. And
Yes.
this is where, but again, I can't give to you what I can't give to myself. I have to be self-aware. And now the question becomes, how do I become self-aware? Where I will start noticing warning signs in myself, so then I can better identify warning signs in others. Unplugging from media. Meditation, you have to make yourself sit in solitude sometimes. Like, get away from media.
Sure.
Scrolling through people's life, just looking at everybody else's life all day. You know,
Right.
start journaling. That's a great way.
Mhm.
Journaling, to like write down your thoughts. And I
We're
do basic
we're gonna
journaling.
come we're
Go
gonna
ahead.
come to solutions a little bit later, but I
Okay.
really I want to appreciate what you said about trauma and just
Yeah,
acknowledge
yeah, yeah.
that it is as damaging as it is. And you know, some people will shame the effects of trauma that you
Yeah.
claim, and that's something that is unnecessary. It's harmful even.
Yeah.
Shame the impact of things that, even the race relations, it doesn't make anyone feel good. It's
No.
something that's very distressing. A lot of people during this time, they've lost employment. They've had to, you know, shift their daily activities. Kids, you know, when you're in a family and you have spouses together, you know, we've heard of so many instances where family members really are going through a tough time. So the
Yeah.
trauma of the pandemic, you know, it's something that will affect us for some time being. So in terms of mental health, like, there are some opportunities, and I wanted you to discuss that. You know, there's opportunities for more empathy, tolerance, guidance, resources, support. So can you elaborate on opportunities uh,
Mhm.
when facing mental health? You know.
Okay. Well, the one thing I want to say is, the individual, we as individuals have to learn how to create our own tempo of life and not let society dictate. And the reason why a lot of us can't deal with our stressors the right way, or when problems happen, the reason why we fall into maladaptive behaviors is because we have let society tell us, it's okay, you'll get over it. Just keep it going. Everything is on the run. Everything is quick. Everything is fast. Everything is in a hurry. But the one thing I would say is we need to learn how to create our own tempo for our own life, and not. I don't even let my mother, I don't let my wife dictate the tempo in which I operate in my life. And that's important that we start there, because again, the reason, and me and you had a conversation about this last week, the reason why people have not overall handled this pandemic very well is because a lot of people are not self-aware. They've let society dictate the flow and the tempo of their life. And we've been used to being on the go. The pandemic comes and make everybody say, stop. Now, check this out. A lot of people say, I want to spend more time with my family. This pandemic has allowed that to happen for so many people, and they realize they probably don't like their family. You thought you liked your family. When you see them here and there, you eat dinner for a second, and but now everybody's quarantined. Or you thought you knew your spouse and you realize you don't really know your spouse, or you thought you knew yourself, but you don't really know yourself. I think we need to start there, because I don't let anything in society, I don't let anything in the church. I dictate the tempo of my life. I know how to unplug, and this is why it didn't affect me. And I want to say this, I'm not a super person, I'm not a super Christian, I'm not just this super powered guy. I just put the right wellness tools in place on a daily basis before the pandemic. So when the pandemic comes, I know how to deal with it, because I'm going to go back to my proper, how I deal with it. You get what I'm saying? But that's because I decided how the flow of my life is. I decided the tempo.
So you talk about wellness planning. That's an excellent opportunity to have wellness planning.
Yeah.
So what would wellness planning look like?
Well, the one thing we want to make sure we realize is what we put in our body. We have to start there. Like we consume so much of the wrong stuff and wonder why the output doesn't smell so well, symbolically speaking, or it doesn't look so good. You get what I'm saying? So starting with what we eat, what we drink, and not saying, hey, you may want a cheeseburger here and there, you may want some French fries here and there, but that shouldn't be your daily diet, because you're going to begin to act like what you put in your body. And so wellness planning is starting, Jan, with saying, I need to be more mindful of what I am consuming. The second thing is wellness planning, and I'm giving things that a lot of people won't make the connection with. The second thing I'll say is, who's in your circle? Who's your support system? Because that you can go to therapy and counseling all day. If you got a poisonous circle of influence, or your support system is unhealthy, listen, you're gonna not do yourself a favor, and in fact, it's gonna make things worse. So I would tell people wellness planning, being mindful of who you have around you. Have healthy relationships, have thriving relationships, no poisonous stuff where every time you talk, they gossiping or putting junk in you. So that's wellness plan. Those two things right there are just major that people won't pay attention to. Eat the wrong stuff and you got the wrong people in your life. That can make things so much more better if people start taking a proactive measure with what they eat and drink, and the people that they have in their life that they built relationships with. A lot of problems would not become overwhelming.
You're right. That's
one more thing.
Very good point. Very good point. So in wellness planning, you mentioned nutrition, being mindful of who's surrounding you, how good your relationships are. Make sure that you have a support system around you. So that's really good. So, you mentioned earlier maladaptive behaviors. Can you please describe what maladaptive behaviors may look like? Because some are not aware that deny your trauma, deny the stress, deny your mental state, and that's a fast track to a maladaptive behavior.
Maladaptive behaviors are anything that won't allow your condition to be made well. So, maladaptive behaviors can come in the form of self-medication. You know, you thinking, I just need me a drink, or I just need me hit me this blunt and I'll be okay. Or it can come through promiscuity, you know, sleeping around. That's another big one. And I have one for you that a lot of Christians won't pay attention to. Maladaptive behavior can include ministry. You suffering through things and you won't face what it is that you're really dealing with, or what's at the root. So now you're trying to do more ministry. You're trying to feed all the homeless people you can. You're trying to clothe all the homeless people you can. You're trying to help every battered women's shelter you can. You're trying to do this because that becomes a drug. That's maladaptive, because it's not going to help your situation better. Okay, so drugs, alcohol, even ministry, eating food becomes maladaptive when you stop eating it from a perspective of nutrition into so you can live. You just start gorging. That's how eating disorders come. And whether you know it or not, people, you can have co-occurring disorders, meaning, listen, when you start being maladaptive in one area, that can create another issue. So now you start using food as instead of journaling, instead of going to see a therapist or a counselor, using food to nurse that wound or to nurse that trauma. So now you went from depression, now you have an eating disorder. Okay.
Right.
So.
No, that's very good to know. Very good to know. And I think it's going to help raise awareness, people's self-awareness to what they might be doing that's really not working deeply.
Right.
I mean, it's not always easy for people to do introspection or look inside or take a good look at what they're doing, avoiding, or not doing that contributes to the unbalance in their mental state. So, in terms of the church, we wanted to talk about that. Like, the church sometimes has its position. You know, there's a lot of denial sometimes, and
Ooh, yes.
oh, surely if you pray, this will be better. God loves you, and He has a plan for you. So we know that it's we're not undermining anybody's belief, but
Right. Right.
mental health is part of your physical state.
Mm-hmm.
So please, Matt,
Okay.
the
Sure.
professor, talk to us about that. How our spiritual life and our
Okay.
mental health, what are the best practices?
Well, the one thing I want to say is we have to remember, uh, faith without works is dead. Like, you know, and sometimes when you mention this about prayer, I think we have the wrong concept of prayer. We think God is divinely going to do everything if we pray. That's not how God operates. He's not going to do everything divinely. There are some things you're going to have to do. And the only way you can do them is if you're listening for the instructions that He will reveal to you through prayer. So we're depressed. I'm suffering from an eating disorder. I got anxiety, or I got schizophrenia. I got bipolar disorder. So I'm praying and seeking the face of God. We're not hearing God saying, hey, go see a therapist. Hey, go see a counselor. You need to be involved in this peer and family support group. We just want Him to come down and say, poof, your bipolarism is gone. Poof, your depression is gone. That's not how God operates. Faith without works is dead. There are certain things God will do supernaturally, but we have to remember, more often than not, there is a part you have to play. All right. So if you're overweight or you don't like the way your health is going, sure, you can pray. But guess what? Prayer is not going to help you lose weight. Prayer is not going to help you get the right habits. You're going to have to take whatever God gives you in prayer and to put it into practice.
Action.
And the one thing, action. And the one thing I want to say is this. Everything is not demonically inspired. That's a stigma and a stereotype that we have to begin to embark upon and destroy from the church. Now, when people are dealing, that's just like somebody going to war. Like when they were in war, the United States was against Iran, you know, and people that dealt with things, or even a war now, you know, listen, It's like somebody suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Right. So what you gonna tell them? Oh, you got a demon because you're dealing with that mental illness? That doesn't even make sense. And so we have to remember too, and I think I mentioned this week, you know, when we talked last week, and I said, if you break your arm, you're gonna pray, but you're gonna go to the hospital. Absolutely. All right. And so we have to remember, prayer doesn't take away from the need for you to do what's wise for your life.
Right.
And it
Right.
doesn't take away from, and it burdens me though that a lot of people say, like, somebody have a heart attack in church, they're going to pray, but what else they're going to do? They're going to call 911,
Absolutely.
go to the hospital. But when somebody is dealing with a mental health disorder or mental illness,
Mhm.
the solution is always said, just give it to God. He'll work it out. Yes,
Right.
he will. He'll
Right.
work it out through other people.
Yes.
Because if I can just pray all day, Jan, and God is just gonna work it out, why does it say bear one another's burdens? Why does it say pray for one another? Why does it say there is safety in a multitude of counselors? Why does
Right.
it say all of that if all the thing I got to do is just take my problems to God
Right.
and everything's gonna work itself out?
Right. No, you're absolutely right, and I'm so glad that you touched upon that because our brain
Mhm.
is physical. It's a matter. There are neurological exchanges. There's synapses, a whole
Good.
lot of things that are going on that are part of our physical wellness. So, um, sometimes those connections need healing too, just like somebody can have diabetes or blood pressure, or they have some kind of hormonal issue. Thankfully we have science that shows us what's in our brain, what's going on. So we can definitely believe that sometimes it's an actual thing. It's out
Yes.
what makes you mentally ill. So thank you for that. So again, like you mentioned, some solutions: journaling, taking care of your nutrition, that went through that and are in a wheelchair. So
Yes.
therefore, having a support group for what you are going through is so important. And I think for as many conditions or fears, disturbances, there are support groups. If you Google support
Mhm.
group for, I don't know,
Anything.
anything,
Yeah.
elephant lovers or
No, no, you for
people who
real.
collect rocks, anything, there's a support group out there. And that is going to be part of your wellness plan and making sure
Mhm.
that your needs are met, that your worries are addressed. Because
Mhm.
family members can love you in one aspect, but they cannot always understand thoroughly what you're going
True.
through. And lastly, you mentioned some breathing exercises or relaxation techniques. And
Very
thank you
important.
so much for those sort of tips and everything. So, uh, there's a big question I'm going to ask, and I saved the best for last. What about churches? Do you think that churches should consider having a mental health personnel or someone who they can address, that people could talk to about mental health? Because
Mhm.
that is unfortunately a taboo subject. It's a difficult concept because,
Mhm.
on one hand, they're teaching to rely in all ways on God,
Mhm.
faith, and the mental health professional. Do you think that we're ready to have that kind of conversation in churches? What do you recommend?
I was about to say that last part. What was the exact question, though?
The question is, what do you
The
think
exact.
in church?
Okay.
Do you
Okay,
think
gotcha.
it's important to have someone, a key person that can help with issues of mental health, or
Okay.
someone that should they be in the church? Should they be part of the church? What about resources? Please tell me what you think about that.
If the church is financially able to have staff therapists or counselors, I would recommend that at least one or two. You know, and if you're not able to, you need to have a printed listing or something ready to give to people that may need the help, because everyone is not, church-wise, is not in position to have staff therapists or counselors, like our church is not. But guess what? If somebody come to me, Pastor Matt, I have some problems. I need a therapist or a counselor. What can you do for me? In 2 minutes, I got them. Easy. I can give them a listing, or I can point them directly where, even going to Psychology Today. People, psychologytoday.com, find a therapist. Go there, type in whatever keywords you want. You can listen. If you don't have what people need, put them in the hands or in a position to get what they need. Like, we don't have staff therapists or counselor at House of Love, but guess what? We got a printed listing of resources, or we got information that we can give you readily so that you can get the help you need. And that's just as good. The church has a responsibility not just to see people's spiritual health, but it's also their physical health. We need to start revisiting some teaching, because the church is supposed to be the ground where people can get help or learn everything that they need to learn. All right. And this doesn't only fall on the pastor, but we're responsible for making sure people are in a good position mentally, emotionally. Now the burden rests on them, because you can't make people accept the help, but we need to make sure that we take a more proactive approach. Again, like you said, therapist, counselor, even having exercise group, there's different things we can do to help people, more than just hearing a good sermon, them giving you the money, tithes and offering, and then going home. Like we have to do more than that. And so I'm charging every leader, every pastor, if you can't afford a staff therapist or a counselor, make sure your secretary gets a printed listing of resources, or know all the resources available. So if somebody needed emailed, you can get to it, not in 30 minutes or an hour, because that can mean a life. I'm talking about like some you can get to readily, like here, go call this number. You can go to this family and peer support group, or call this number to this therapist. You need to be able to provide people with resources ASAP. And again, that doesn't just fall on the pastor, that falls on anybody that's really part of the leadership staff. So that's very important.
Part of the training. Excellent, excellent. So that is really good. I'm glad that we were able to touch all these aspects of mental health for Christians, being able to acknowledge it, maybe being able to talk about it, being able to share with others and reach out to them in our community, in our homes, and all that. So I don't know if you have any closing remarks for us in regards to mental health, or if you wanted to share anything in particular.
Okay. I do actually. I want to touch on something that I mentioned to you before, like last week, about interdependence. We have to start teaching. I don't teach anybody to be dependent on another person, but I don't teach them to be independent, because if you do too much teaching on independence, people begin to think they can do life on their own. And then when problems come, they begin to think, I can handle this on my own. You taught me to be independent, so now you want me to ask for help? That's the other side. We need to watch what we're teaching people. But you don't want people to think that they don't have any accountability and that they can just fall on their support system either. Interdependence is defined as a healthy balance of personal accountability, but also being able to fall back on your support system if you need to. And that's very important to people that are dealing with mental health disorders or advanced stages of mental illness, because I don't care what kind of resources you put in the hand of somebody. If they don't have the desire or the accountability in themselves, something in them has to want to get better, be made well, want to live, want to thrive. Because I can put you in the hands of every excellent therapist and counselor, every peer support group. I can give you every wellness tool, every coping mechanism. But if you don't have any accountability to utilize these resources, I can't make you utilize the help that I'm giving you. That's where personal accountability comes in. So that's the final thing I will say. Let's start teaching interdependence. I'm here for you, but you got to do this, listen, for you. If you need to fall back, I'm going to catch you, but don't just fall back just because you're lazy. Try to do this. Or in an aspect of mental illness, listen, I know you have the desire to want to get healthy. Here's the tools you need to get healthy, but you're going to have to make the decision. Because the other thing I want to mention too is you can do more harm than good forcing help on people that don't want it or that won't receive it. So your phone is on mute.
That's a very good point. Thank you. So thank you so much for that last point. I think it's so important. And I want to thank everybody who joined us, everyone in the comments. I didn't see any questions, but I saw a lot of acknowledgments. So I want to thank each and every person who worked hard to make this live possible. I want to thank you also, Pastor Matt Johnson, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to also thank Impact Ambiance for working so hard all the time to really bring everything together. Awesome. So everyone, we pray that this live was able to help you, maybe clarify some things for you. And I certainly learned a lot. And so if you need any additional information, we will put some information in the comments when we end the live. And hopefully your family members, or anyone who can benefit, because mental conditions can hit anyone at any time. It's unpredictable.
Mhm.
As healthy as you are, that's good to help you cope. But
Yeah.
we never know how a person could be hit. So let's be prepared. Let's stay ready. And I wanted to thank everyone again. Have a blessed evening, everyone. We'll see you next time on another live on a different topic.
All right. Bye-bye. Good night. Thank you.